thanks everybody for coming. My name is Paula Donovan, and I'm a resident of Ward 9. I live on Lennox Avenue, and I'm part of the group that helped organize tonight's event. Thank you to everybody for coming. So we've got lots of refreshments, so please help yourselves. Are there people in the audience who need Spanish translation? If you do, please raise your hand. We have an interpreter, we have the equipment, so you can...
You have to say it in Spanish.
Si hay alguien que necesita traducción, tenemos un poco de equipaje para unos auriculares. Necesita que, si quiere, en español, levante la mano y le entregamos un audífono y un receptor. Gracias.
Okay. So first off, I think everybody knows the candidates, but I'll introduce them. On the far end, we have Juan Pichardo. He's the Democratic candidate for the council seat. In the middle, we have Jose Gobaran. He's running as an independent. And on this end, we have Diego Mendez. Is that? Okay. Who is also running as an independent. So we're really excited to, have such a great group of people running to represent Ward 9 on the City Council. Really appreciate you being here tonight. I know you're all very busy. So I think just one reminder, if you didn't sign in, please sign in. We have... Right over here. We have our group prepared some questions already, which we will ask the candidates. We are also willing to take questions from the audience. If you have a question, you have pieces of paper up here. Please write down your question and submit them to Yadira. And then we'll open it up for more questions if we have time at the end. So now I am going to introduce our MC and our timekeeper. Our MC is Nikki Kisich. He was also our MC the last time in August. And Dylan is our timekeeper. So I think that about covers it. But thanks everybody for coming. Really appreciate you coming out tonight. It's really great to see people participating. So, over to you.
Hi. Thank you all for coming to the... Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Thank you all for coming to the forum. We have, as Paul said, 5 questions that we prepared, and then we will be taking questions from the audience. We have 3 candidates, so we will rotate who gets the question first. Dylan here has 2 signs, one with 30 on it for 30 seconds left, and then another sign for 0, which means that your time is up. Please don't speak past your time. And we just ask that you hold any applause until the end of the comments and that you enjoy yourself. Thank you for coming to ENA's Candidate Forum. So the first question is, what do you want to represent Ward 9 on the council? What are the key issues you want to address? What skills and abilities would you bring to the role of city councilor? I think we'll start with Juan on this one.
So thank you very much for coming out, and Elmwood Neighborhood Association for holding once again the second forum, especially after the primary. Very happy to be the candidate, Democratic candidate for City Council in Ward 9 here. My name is Juan Pichardo, and I want to be your City Council. And the reason why I'm running for office is because, as an immigrant, as a son, as a father and a husband and a military member, a year in the community, I have had the opportunity to live an enriched life here, based on the fact that being an immigrant and seeing my mother struggle being a single mom, raising two sisters. I think that for me, making sure that people are represented at a different level, which is the level of the city government. Also, as a former state senator for 14 years, I bring the experience of policy, of compassion, but also representing a strong voice for the community. Seeing that I fought for many of the issues that immigrants and local communities over the years have fought for, and particularly when I passed several legislation at the state level, particularly legislation such as the no-low contendery, which pretty much before it was a hindrance for immigrants who went before district court and then had immigration issues. The issue that I'm going to be fighting for in our community, one is the quality of life, making sure that the trash and the streets are clean. I want to make sure that continue to fight for housing, particularly low to moderate income housing, especially in our ward. I want to make sure that those issues are front and center, making sure that the civic participation in our city continues to grow, making sure that, just as I did when I was in the Senate, have open government and have the halls of City Hall be the hall of empowerment. Thank you.
Thank you. Darle las gracias por adelantado a los organizadores de este magno evento,
We want to thank the organizers of this meeting,
el cual espero y confío que va a ser uno de los mejores,
which I hope will be one of the best that we've had so far.
dada que aquí hoy, ustedes saben que nosotros no salimos mucho con frío ni con lluvia.
Given that we don't come out too much when the weather's
Sin
not-
embargo, aquí está la florinata, para la que pido un fuerte aplauso para ustedes mismos. Un fuerte aplauso para ustedes mismos.
An applause for yourself for coming out to the meeting.
Y después para mí.
And then for me,
Gracias. Bueno, mi trayectoria,
my trajectory,
todo el mundo la conoce aquí en el
everybody
Nuevo.
knows about my
En el estado de
background here
Florida.
in the
Soy
city.
un hombre que he estado siempre ligado a los deportes,
I've always been
a la
associated with
cultura,
sports, culture,
a la política
politics,
y casado con una mujer a quien amo, a quien adoro.
married to
Esa señora que está ahí detrás de ustedes. Por 32 años.
32 years married,
Casi para 33 años.
almost 33.
Nosotros, digo porque va a ser una de los mejores eventos que se han celebrado aquí, porque somos tres amigos contándome conmigo.
I will tell you why this is going to be one of the best of
Aprecio tanto a Juan, mi maestro político,
Three friends here at the table, Juan, my teacher,
como a Diego, que es un propulsor de la juventud también,
Diego, who's a young person,
a Miguel, que está por ahí, caramba.
Miguel, who's in the middle of the
Muy buen
audience
hombre.
somewhere.
Pero para continuar, yo soy graduado de educación física, profesor de educación física en mi país, República
Graduated
Dominicana,
as a teacher
estudiante de
in
periodismo
education,
deportivo, organizadores del grupo que se llama, que allá formó todas las asociaciones culturales, todos los medios de comunicación, todos los medios sociales, que fue un tapo. Yo no sé si alguien oyó de un tapo allá, que era la Junta de Vecinos.
Le metí en pito, Pato.
Allá, perdón, que estoy inspirado.
I'm inspired. I can't give you time to translate.
Pero yo pronto me someto a la disciplina.
I've studied, he said he studied sports and sports journalism and being an organizer in his country, the Dominican Republic
Ya,
dígame otra vez, que se me olvidó.
de República Dominicana.
Yeah, so the Dominican Republic.
Ya. Organicé 37 clubes
I organized 37 clubs,
y hoy estoy aquí porque no voy a criticar a los que han pasado por aquí,
and here I'm here because, but not to criticize those who have gone before,
sino de tratar de hacer
but to try to do
lo que ellos no pudieron hacer.
what they were not able to do.
Y juntos vamos a hacer posible
Together
con la
we'll make
comunidad
possible for the community
de realizar
to realize
vuelvo y repito, lo que ellos no pudieron hacer.
what, or to accomplish what they were not able to accomplish, those who have gone before.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Buenas, gracias el club. Thank you to the ENA for organizing this. My name is Diego. I'm your neighbor on Adelaide Avenue, and I've lived in Providence for 10 years. I grew up in Washington, D.C., in a neighborhood actually a lot like this, also near the zoo, which is kind of funny. My mom and her family came to Washington, D.C. from El Salvador, where they had to leave a violent civil war. So my mom, her sister, her two brothers, and my grandma, all of us sort of grew up in the same neighborhood in Washington. I came to Providence for college, and I fell in love. Almost every summer that I was here, I stayed and worked over the summer. After I graduated from Brown University with a degree in public policy, I did a year of service with AmeriCorps. I taught kids how to read and write in English and in Spanish, which is very important to me. After that year of service, I continued to work as a teacher, but I've pursued a career in social work with a focus on mental health. For several years, I worked as a recovery coach, which meant that I helped people get sober, and I helped people overcome their mental illness, their trauma, and their addiction, finding jobs, getting medical care, reuniting with their family, most importantly. Over the course of those years, and working in Providence and all over the state of Rhode Island as well, I noticed that the government services and the city services that were available to people were just not quite as good as they should have been. They were always a little bit harder to access and deal with, and there was always an extra step that got in the way from someone actually getting from point A to point B. And that's why I'm running. But it's actually not really just about the adults in the room. It's really about our kids, our young students, and our kids' kids, who we want to stay in this neighborhood and have better chances than we did to stay in this neighborhood, to stay in the city, to stay in this state, and be able to be here and prosper. And we have to show up for them. The pandemic has been extremely difficult on them. I see it every day at school. That's why I'm running, to show up for them at school, to show up for them after school, and to show up for them at City Hall. That's why I'm running for City Council. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, thank you. The next question. A March 2017 city presentation called A Community Conversation About the Future of Broad Street included income statistics for our area, which state that 34% of the community lives in poverty, compared to 14% in Metro Providence and 16% nationwide. The median household income was 50% less than the Metro Providence average. What steps can be taken to improve residents' access to good-paying employment opportunities to bring them out of poverty? Diego, we'll start with you this time, since you went last.
Thank you. I think that the history here is very important. So we know 41% of the neighborhood was not born in the United States, but that's actually sort of been the case for 100 years. This neighborhood has always been a safe place for immigrants, Jewish immigrants, Polish immigrants, Cambodian immigrants, and of course, Dominican immigrants and people from Central and South America. And we can't forget that a lot of displaced African American populations were forced to come to this side of town who previously lived on the east side and other sides of town, and here they also found and made a community. So I think it's really important to understand that context when we kind of go over some of these statistics. The real answer, and it's not a short-term fix, it's a long-term fix, is the education system just has to be much, much better. It is not good enough right now. It's just not. And I see this every day at school, where I teach at a school in Pawtucket, which takes kids from Providence and Central Falls. But I see it at the schools in Providence as well. We have an opportunity in our neighborhood to teach every kid how to read and write in English and in Spanish, and we're not doing that. That is one of the biggest economic assets that we can be giving to our kids, and it's not happening. That concerns me. So education is the base. I think the second thing that I hear a lot about knocking on doors is, there are opportunities. There are small business loans out there. When you go on the city website, you can find these things, but I don't think City Council has done a very good job of making sure that every single neighbor in our neighborhood knows about how to fill out each of those applications, knows that they could do it online, or will come to their door to help them fill it out on paper. So my vision in our campaign has been that if we win, that's just the beginning of us knocking on doors. We have to keep doing that, going door to door to let people know, hey, this program is now available, $10,000 for a small business. There is stuff out there. And lastly, there are existing things that we're just not implementing. So all of the businesses in Providence that get tax breaks are supposed to hire people that live in Providence. But they don't. Only about 20% of the people they hire actually live in Providence. So it's like, we have stuff on the books, we have things that should be working, but they're not.
Gracias. Repítame la pregunta, por favor. No
Have the question again.
We were having a quick discussion. Would it be okay if we added 30 seconds to his time every time just for the translation or something? What do you? You're okay with that? All right, great, thank you. All right, the question again.
La pregunta.
Yeah. March 2017.
En marzo del 2017. Si quiere yo se lo traduzco así. I can hear you. So.
Yeah. March.
That's okay, go ahead.
Yeah, a March 2017 city presentation
Hay una presentación de la ciudad en el 2017
called A Community
se llama-
Conversation About the Future of Broad Street.
que se llamaba a Community Conversation del futuro de Broad Street.
Included income statistics for our area,
Incluyó estadísticas de los ingresos en esta área,
which state that 34% of the community lives in poverty,
que dice que el 34% de la comunidad vive en pobreza,
compared to 14% in Metro Providence and
comparado con
16%
14%
nationwide.
en la ciudad de Providence y 16% nacional.
The median household income is 50% less than the Metro Providence average.
El ingreso promedio de este vecindario es 50% menos del ingreso de la ciudad entera.
What steps can be taken to improve residents' access to good-paying employment opportunities to bring them out of poverty?
¿Qué pasos se pueden tomar para proveer oportunidades a los vecinos para salir de la pobreza?
Sí, eso es muy importante.
It's very important.
Yo no estoy bien empapado, pero podría decir
I would say
que muchos de los delices de la penuria con la que atravesamos nosotros, porque yo me incluyo yo también,
that many of the problems
se
that
debe a
we take
la mala administración
is owed to bad administration
de lo facultativo para proveer,
of the money that's
crear
available
los medios de
to
empleo
provide work opportunities
para que la persona pueda renovarse
so that the
y
people
poder
can improve themselves
hacerle frente
and
a las vicisitudes con las que afrenta, que son muchas personas que afrontamos eso, no solamente en Providence, es casi a un nivel, pero a nosotros lo que nos duele es Providence, el 9.
so that
Y-
create opportunities for self-improvement to be able to confront the problems that we have.
En primer lugar, yo tengo algunos apuntes
In my first position
para tratarlo con la comunidad,
so that I could be able to talk with the community,
para buscar los medios
find the means
de conseguir vivienda asequible
to find available housing,
y a bajo costo, porque ahora mismo alquilar una casa es un poco fuerte.
renting
después
housing
de la
right now is
pandemia.
pretty hard.
Más adelante,
After
nosotros
that,
trataremos de estudiar
we could study
esos pormenores que tanto caramba agobian
the
a la
causes
comunidad
that oppress
de Providence y trataremos de salirlo adelante
and we will try to
con
come
promociones
progress.
hacia la alta esfera del Estado, que ellos valoren y supervaloren la
Asking the
población.
state so that they would
Porque
appreciate
estamos-
our population.
Estamos muy huérfanos, Providence está muy huérfano.
We are orphans.
Y es muy importante eso, es muy importante eso. El Estado que menos se ha ayudado de los 50 estados, de los 31 estados ahora mismo que están más o menos,
The state that has less been helped is, we are one of the states that has less been helped.
es Providence, Rhode Island.
In the city, in the
Y eso es muy bueno. Tenemos que hacer un planteamiento serio después con la comunidad y combinarlo a que defiendan lo que le toca a ellos.
So we have to bring the things
Por
that are
obligación.
right by right are ours, and we have to defend the rights that we have and bring what is ours. by
Hasta
right.
que no tengamos personas que nosotros le dolamos, hasta que no hayan líderes que defiendan a la comunidad,
So
vamos a
until
estar
we don't
siempre
have
en
leaders
ese
that
mismo
defend the
nivel.
community, we will always be in the same position.
Gracias.
Thank you.
So to address the issue of how do we do the poverty in our community, I think we've come a long way. Growing up here and just seeing the streets and the houses that were being burnt over the years and how people have taken ownership of some of the properties. I think that we have to continue and develop more programs for adult education. We need to make sure that the people that are living in our community, particularly when it's about 67% who are second language speakers, 88% minority. We know that the education level is very minimal because of the fact that they've made the sacrifices to come here to the United States and raise their families, just like my mom, as she has done with our two sisters. And providing that opportunity for adults to learn English and therefore also how to utilize computers, that's going to be key to help our kids do better in their education. And that segues to what's so important for us as a community, and that is the education, in particularly in Providence. We need to make sure that when we receive the education system from the state of Rhode Island, and while we're also participating in our kids just are going to the public school system, that we are engaged and that we are helping improve that system. Because at the end of the day, we need to increase our kids to graduate from high school and go on to college. Now we know that not all of our kids, based on our system, will not make it all the way to college. So we have to ensure that we have technical programs for our kids to actually get jobs and improve their lives. Because we know that in the labor and the construction sector, they also can make more money even going than going to college. And so in the meantime, we have to make sure that we focus on adult education for English language learners, focus on the education of our kids, improving our education system, and then also providing those technical skills for our future graduates of high school. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, the third question, what is your plan for doing outreach with the residents of Ward 9 if you are elected to be our city councilor? What is your communication style? What kind of communication tools will you use? What do you think is a good example of effective communication? You can have this question.
La pregunta es, ¿cuál es su método de comunicarse con los vecinos? ¿Cómo va a comunicarse con ellos si lo elegimos concejal?
Bueno, yo siempre he estado en comunidad con mi vecino.
I've always been in community with my neighbors.
Yo no he enviado todavía la primera carta.
I haven't sent out my first letter.
Mi comunidad me conoce
My community knows
y sabe
me,
quién soy
they
yo.
know who I am,
porque yo voy cara a cara.
because I go face
No me
to
gusta
face.
enviar
with people.
comunicación.
I like to communicate that way and not by sending mail.
Y estaré comunicándome siempre con ellos, porque eso es lo que ha faltado en el distrito número 9.
I will be communicating with them. That's one thing that has been lacking in District 9.
Que sin criticar a nadie,
Without criticizing anyone else,
los concejales que ha tenido el distrito número 9
the councilors that have been in District 9
trabajan en oficina.
work in offices.
No van al corazón,
They don't come to the heart.
no conocen los problemas
They don't know our problems,
de los vecinos.
the problems of the neighbors.
Bueno, una anécdota.
A story.
Yo estuve hace un promedio de 2 semanas
2 weeks ago,
donde una muchacha aquí, no voy
in the
a decir
neighborhood,
quién,
was speaking with someone.
y yo llego allá a entregarle una tarjetita.
And I went over to hand
Y
her
me dice,
a card, and she said,
Yo no lo conozco a usted,
I
pero
don't
ustedes nada
know
más
who you
vienen
are, but you come
cuando necesitan algo de
when you
nosotros.
need something from us.
Vi 3 niños
I saw 3 children
en el patio
in the patio,
y yo le dije a ella,
and I said to her,
yo te prometo a ti
I promise you
que cuando yo sea concejal
that
de
when I'm
aquí,
your counselor, your city counselor,
voy a habilitar una mini cancha aquí, un mini
I will
complejo
make a
deportivo
small
en este
sports
patio.
complex in this patio,
para que tus hijos
so that your
no
children
tiren piedra en la calle,
don't throw rocks on the street.
para que tus hijos no anden en bicicleta como vi que un carro batió a un niño en estos
Your
días
children won't be
en la Broad
like,
Street.
on the broad street, like on the bikes.
Para que tus hijos practiquen y se educan, porque todavía podemos salvar a la juventud.
Will practice and be educated, because we can still work with the youth.
Mi trayectoria hoy y mi plataforma no es política,
My
no es
platform is
política,
not a political platform.
es social,
It's social,
de orden genealógico,
order,
ideológico,
ideológico,
de actitud
attitude,
y de ayudar a que la población sea más fuerte,
and to help the
más próspera,
population be stronger, be more prosperous.
brindándole los tecnicismos que yo voy a implantar y que no le he dicho todavía porque no quería que me lo robaran. Aquí roba mucho la
To
cosa.
show them the things that I have to say.
Que Dios me lo acompañe a ustedes. Gracias.
God bless you.
So, from the very beginning,
No?
from the very beginning, our community campaign has been about action. I mean, actions speak louder than words. That's our communication style. That's my communication style. So I'll tell you a little bit about what we've done. Over the summer, every weekend or every other weekend pretty much, and into the fall, we did community service projects as a part of our campaign. We cleaned about 9 blocks, over 100 bags of trash. We brought neighbors together, kids who had never met each other before. The campaign brought food, coffee, and the campaign bought the materials to do the cleaning. That's effective communication. We raised money and gave over 25 free haircuts to kids and families where I get my haircut on Elmwood Avenue. For me, that's effective communication. People will listen when they can see the improvement happening in front of them. We registered over 50 new voters to get involved and vote in the primaries and in the general election. 25 of them were kids that just graduated high school, and the other half were people that just finished their citizenship. So that's effective communication to me. I volunteer at Gilbert Stewart After School. We raise money for City Arts. We raise money for Elmwood Little League. We raise money for Hip Hop Chess Club. That's effective communication. That's money that our campaign raised, that we put right back into the community. Something I heard on so many doors was, people knock on my door every 4 years and then I never see them again. And I said, yeah, you're right. That sort of drives me crazy too. And so, like I said before, when we win, that's just the beginning of us knocking on people's doors to continue doing these community service projects block by block, newsletter by newsletter, and bringing people together. And investing, our resources actually back into our community and showing up. That's effective communication.
So my communication style is to ensure, one, continue to go door to door asking people to get involved. Making sure that we use social media to ensure that we inform them, and especially now that everyone has a smartphone. One of the things that we are developing, or at least try to develop as we go door to door, and I've gone door to door, is to establish the street captain model, in the sense that people that live in the streets, they're going to be informed, but also when we have meetings with local law enforcement or the resources that we're going to bring from the city to the local community so that they can stay informed. As you all know, and those of us who have ran for office, when we go door to door, especially people who have been in office, you may go and go door knock at 100 doors, and you may find 10, 15 people. And over time, people are not home, so they'll tell you, yeah, I don't see my elected official. And that's something that people in general need to engage more and more often. And this is why I figured that we are going to develop people in block by block. Because when we see Doug, when we see Miguel or Janet or Janetti involved, it's because they have an interest. And so when we look at the M1 Neighborhood Association, you may have a mailing list of 200 people. But when you call a meeting, there's only 10 people. And so decision making is done very local, and there's only 10 people actually providing some feedback. And so for me, I want to make sure that I continue doing that. And so when I get elected, we're going to have meetings with law enforcement, with the community, but also with our elected official, working together to ensure that we bring the resources from the city and the state at the local level. Because dealing with policy at the state level is a different level compared to being a city council person. And I will tell you, my experience will determine how we're going to bring the resources based on the communication tools that we're going to engage. And that is social media, call, and returning phone calls. Making sure that those newsletters, whether it's lit drop or door knocking or social media. Thank you.
Bueno,
Question 4. What specific plan do you have to reduce the negative environmental impact of the industries along Allens Avenue on Elmwood residents? For example, what steps do you think can be taken to reduce air, noise, and toxic waste pollution that affects our health? Juan, this question is yours.
So knowing that living here for now over 30 years and raising my kids here, we know that there are reports that the high rate of asthma, lead, and especially when it comes to, when you look at our surrounding, particularly here in Ward 9, and through Broad Street, Prairie, and Eddy, and Allens Avenue. In this area, the environmental impact for those of us who who have lived here, particularly with the minority community, has been very impactful. And so one of the things that we need to pay attention and take action on, locally first in the ward, is figuring it out with Rhode Island Energy and National Grid, or what used to be National Grid. That has been remediating that complex for now over 12 years. And that is something that we brought light to it, and they continue to do it. The same thing when you look at the RIPTA complex. And so all these industries in the middle of our ward has impacted our community, and we need to ensure that we come together to figure out and holding them more accountable. The waterfront over there on Islands Avenue, I think that we need to develop that. And we need to make sure that some of those industries need to go away. We need to organize, and we need to sit down and bring those who own those industries to the table and say enough is enough. When you look at ports such as Seattle, Washington DC, or Baltimore, those waterfronts are developed and the community enjoys it, and the environmental impact has been reduced. And I think that our vision for our communities, particularly the West End, the Elmwood, the South Side, it is time for us to provide stronger leadership to ensure that those the reduction of the environmental impact, but also the development of the waterfront there needs to be developed.
¿Verdad? La necesidad. Can I have that again? The question.
Yeah. What specific plan do you have to reduce the negative environmental impact?
¿Qué plan específico tiene para reducir el impacto del medio ambiente negativo
Of the industries
de las
along Allen's
industrias
Ave
sobre
for
la
Allen
Allen
residents?
y en particular la industria sobre la Allen Avenue sobre nosotros?
For example, what steps do you think can be taken to
¿Qué
reduce
pasos tomarán para mejorar el air quality?
air
Para mejorar la
noise,
calidad del
and
aire
toxic waste pollution
y
that affects our health?
la polución tóxica que nos afecta a nosotros?
Bueno, como diría mi hermano aquí,
As Juan would say,
es un problema
it's a problem
de conciencia,
of conscience,
específicamente de los dueños
especially of
de
the
Rita,
owners
principalmente.
of the businesses. ¿De cuál negocio, Rita?
de Rita,
De los buses.
que claro está, esos son los que contaminan.
Particularly Rita, the bus company,
Y esos camiones que tú lo ves que pasan por
the
ahí,
buses or the
que los mofos lo
trucks
tienen abajo en vez de tenerlo arriba.
that are not
Y la policía lo ve y amistosamente ellos lo que le dan la mano a la policía.
that the police don't enforce the rules that we have,
Y andan como chivos sin ley en la carretera.
and that they have
Gente con...
no
Le,
control on the
le echan hasta ¿cómo es? Aceite podrido
So sometimes they even add oil to their gas
para infectar el ambiente, el medio ambiente. Sin embargo, yo
to
veo,
deteriorate the environment.
y no estoy hablando mentira,
And I'm not telling
y
lies.
ustedes que están aquí lo han visto y son testigos.
You've seen that. And
Aquí hay carros corriendo
there are cars here
en la avenida que no deberían de correr.
that shouldn't be on the road.
Por mi casa, por lo menos, ahí mismo enfrente, hay unos cuantos carros por ahí que tú lo ves
In my
que
house,
ellos
there's some cars that you see in front of the house.
hacen lo que le da
They
su
do
real
whatever they
voluntad.
want to their car.
¿A qué se debe eso? ¿A qué
What is
se
the
debe
cause
eso?
of that?
Número uno, tenemos que fundamentalmente, aunque nosotros no queramos,
We have to, number one, we have to,
Porque eso conlleva-
want to,
a un desplazamiento, y nosotros lo sabemos,
move us out of the neighborhood and we know that.
que los vehículos sean
That the,
pasados a ser eléctricos.
that the cars would move on to becoming electric cars.
Que cuando usted tenga una, allá en los patios tú ves quemando basura.
And you see, sometimes you see people burning trash in
Yo
their
me,
yards.
yo me he espantado oyendo botellas que explotan.
I've been scared by bottles being broken on the street.
Prohibir y estar atento a todas esas cosas.
We we have to pay attention to those things.
Primordialmente creo que lo que debe de haber es un poquito más de conciencia
I think the first thing they have to have
Y que
is a little
nuestras
more
autoridades
conscience, and that our authorities,
de tránsito.
our
Cuando vean un carro,
police,
Botando humo.
a car that's
que lo paren ahí mismo y digan, usted no puede correr aquí, usted está infectando a la humanidad, usted está dañando ahí la ecología.
that they would stop cars who are putting out burnt
Y quitarle el carro ahí mismo,
take their car away right there.
no dejarlo. A una guagua berrita,
Even the RIPTA buses.
que pase, porque lleve muchos pasajeros, no pararla con todos los pasajeros y ahí mismo llamar a la compañía, manda otra guagua, esta guagua está confiscada.
This bus,
Pero no lo hacen porque son sectores poderosos
we don't do that because the sector is powerful.
y las poblaciones no se van a concientizar así.
And our
Eso es mentira.
population will not.
No vamos a hacer una plataforma en la mentira, amparado en la mentira, eso no es así. Es un proceso que lleva mucho tiempo y conlleva mucho trabajo
A
también,
lot of work,
mucho asesoramiento barriales,
a lot of evaluations of the neighborhoods,
principalmente en nuestra comunidad.
and especially our.
Desde hoy en adelante yo tengo un carrito ahí que lo voy a botar, ya lo saben, cuente conmigo.
Now I've got my little old car that I'm going to throw away, making it food.
Gracias, Jose. This is a great question. I attended a community meeting last week to meet with the Washington Park Neighborhood Association and one person in particular, Monica Huertas, who is one of the leaders of the People's Port Authority. There are already community organizations that are doing this work. And at that meeting, it should also be noted, the Attorney General's office was there. And they were taking notes about stuff that Monica was informing them about. That's a great use of a city councilor's time, to be connecting people from the neighborhood to the highest levels of authority at the state. So I'm already starting to build those relationships so that we can do that here, and in conjunction with our friends in Ward 10. Monica's leadership has been critical. She supported a state plan called the Rescue Rhode Island Act, which did not pass, but which did many things, including block toxic facilities from being built in neighborhoods like ours, which are mostly residential, kids and families. And they call them green justice zones. That's a really good idea. There are only 25 businesses in the port. 25. There are 25 businesses on Broad Street, but they're not killing us. So I'm sitting here wondering, why do they have to be in some of the most densely populated areas with kids and young people and families when they could literally be anywhere else in the state, called the Ocean State? There's plenty of port space for those businesses. So why are they next to our neighborhoods? That's a hard question. It has to be asked. The last thing that I think is really important, we need to make sure we make smart investments in infrastructure in our city. So if we are not careful and we have another huge rainstorm or hurricane, something like that, and Allen's Avenue floods, that is going to be a huge problem. Toxic waste entering the waterway, the roads getting destroyed, toxic waste flooding into our basements. So we have to be thinking ahead. City Council and the mayor need to be working together to think ahead on how do we spend money now to prevent a disaster like that from happening, which is going to impact the port, Ward 10, and Ward 9 the most. Thank you.
I think you go next too. Okay, thank you. So our fifth and last prepared question, if anyone wants a question asked, you can go and submit it right now. Our fifth and last question. Our neighborhood has experienced a string of violent incidents at nightclubs that are frightening to residents. Nightclub owners show no interest in addressing residents' concerns. For example, Mi Sueño's Sunday car shows force residents to leave their homes. Residents are awakened by gunshots in the middle of the night. Property has been vandalized. What will you do to make sure that the Board of Licenses does not ignore the city's ordinances, such as the noise ordinance, and is more responsive to the will of residents?
All right, great question. The two most common things that I hear at the doors, actually over 80% of the neighbors when I knock on their doors, are noise and crime. Those are the two biggest issues that are the most common to people all over the neighborhood, every single corner of the neighborhood, and especially people that are along, that live along Broad Street, Early Street, Saving Street, Sassafras. There have been structural problems with the Board of Licenses that go back years. So, I mean, there are many examples of this, but the Board of Licenses has frequently approved licenses, liquor licenses, club licenses for businesses, even when the Providence police and the neighbors in the area say, we're very worried about this business continuing to operate. And yet the Board of Licenses goes over the police's head and over all the testimony of the neighbors and grants them a liquor license. So it's like we need to think very hard about what that means. The police are saying this is not safe, and yet the license is being granted anyway. Part, I think, of the problem is that people that serve on this board, if those people that serve on that board also have political positions and they take campaign contributions from people that are seeking liquor licenses, that's an obvious conflict of interest. I think that the Board of Licenses, the rules have to be applied more consistently and more transparently and more ethically. In the end, that's going to benefit the clubs and the neighborhood the most long term. It's not an issue of it's the clubs versus the neighborhood. I think that's a false dichotomy. Our neighborhood is wonderful because we have music, because we have clubs. But there has to be a way of working together and looking forward so that neighbors know, okay, this weekend may be a little bit louder, but we've already come to an agreement that on Sunday there will be no music, especially this Sunday because it's back to school. So like those are the types of planning, that's the type of planning that we need to be doing. The last thing that I'll say is that City Council is in charge of confirming who actually sits on the Board of Licenses. I just won't confirm the Board of Licenses unless there's a neighbor from Ward 9 on the board. That's something that I can do in my position on City Council. Thank you.
I'm forgetting.
Repeat that.
I said what I said.
I know. Ándete eso. Le voy a decir algo a ustedes.
I'll tell you something.
Parece ser que nosotros, digo, yo no sé si yo vivo en la tierra.
Seems like that us,
Okay.
maybe, I don't know if I live on Earth.
Hay veces que uno se va un par de semanas lejos de aquí o a Altamar, lo que sea.
We'll go away for a
Pero
couple weeks.
señores, el problema de los clubes nocturnos aquí
The problem of the clubs here,
es un problema que todos lo sabemos y todos lo conocemos.
it's a problem that we all know about.
Y yo me atrevo a decir
And I will be bold to say
que si me va a costar a mí
that if it's going to cost me
defender los valores sociales,
to defend the social values,
espirituales
spiritual values,
y de mi vecindad,
and of my neighbors,
porque yo diga lo que voy a decir,
because I'm going to say
A
what
mí no
I'm
me
going to
importa.
say, I don't care.
esto es un problema de clase,
This is a problem of class.
de una clase abstracta, de una clase, perdónenme el vocabulario, sucia,
Of a class that's above us.
que lo que hace es contaminar de aspereza a la juventud.
That what they do is contaminate the youth.
Es decir, mi sueño aquí
Saying my
es un prostíbulo
is
y
like
me importa, lo digo público.
un prostíbulo, dijo.
Sí, un prostíbulo, yo lo digo públicamente y que me sometan, que lo digo.
Here.
Y es hacedores de maldad,
And they do wrong things there.
con hombres que lo dirigen que no tienen dignidad.
With the people who
Y lo digo
lead
públicamente, que me cueste lo que me cueste. atenta contra la juventud, compadre. Los vecinos no saben lo que van a hacer ya.
They do against the youth. And neighbors don't know what people go do over there.
¿Y qué hace el concejal entonces?
And what is the city councilor supposed to do?
Hay unos viejitos que están ahí, que Dios me los bendiga a todos,
There's some older folks.
que están en el comité de pureza o lo que se llame.
And
Y yo no veo lo que hacen.
I don't see what they do.
No veo lo que hacen.
I don't see what they do.
Porque a la juventud lo que le gusta hoy,
Because what they
que
use
como nosotros no le buscamos los medios
is because we don't find ways for them to be involved.
de que ellos salgan
For
adelante,
them to go out to make progress in
ellos lo que hacen es que tienen el amiguito que lo lleva allí
is they'll
a fumar una juca,
to,
etcétera, etcétera. Creo que es un mal
I think it's
que corresponde a los concejales.
that is the responsibility of
Y el concejal de ahí es un irresponsable también. ¿Por qué? Porque lo que ha sucedido en mi sueño
is their
no
responsibility.
tiene prenombre en la historia de Providence City.
It doesn't have a place here in our Providence.
Excúsenme que yo hablar en esa tonalidad, pero siento coraje e ira
But I am angry
cuando a mí me mencionan a mi sueño.
when I hear about me.
Excúsenme, pido excusa.
We need somebody to represent ourselves for this neighborhood. We need someone that's from here, that could really understand our language, that could understand the temperature. It's tough out here now. We need to make decisions that would impact everyone as in this
Let
community.
me just hold that to you. You can ask a question after they're.
Understood, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
And I'm for you.
Figured that one out.
So, as I go door to door,
Okay.
I really love you, I really know you.
so so as I go door to door, as it was said before, the biggest thing is about noise, right? Noise in cars, music, and also Broad Street, right? And Broad Street. One of the things that I have, and that is experience within the Board of Licensing, and also being an elected official, and also knowing my community. We know that music is important to our communities, and particularly the immigrant community. We know that it also contributes to our economy in some ways. And we know that restaurant owners and also club owners are business people, and they also need a voice. And so having that experience and that leadership, it is about engaging, the business people to bring them to the table to ensure that they understand the ordinance or laws that already exist, and also bring them together with the community to understand and help them understand that they can operate a business, a club, or a restaurant, or a lounge within those laws. I think what's been missing is that communication. Usually, what has been happening over time is that we wait or we react to things. And so, I will tell you that I have those relationships, whether it's with Mi Sueño, whether it's with the local business that's a restaurant that turns into a drinking, a hookah, or little dancing. We know that takes place. What we as residents are troubled by is that excessive noise, whether the music is sounding beyond the four walls, and the frustration of police enforcing those laws, because at times they would say that their hands are tied and so forth. I will tell you that as a city council person, we will have those conversations, whether it's with Mi Sueño, whether it's with the restaurant, and the local authorities, to ensure that once I get elected, we start from the beginning to make sure that they understand the rules and regulations that already exist. And finally, is to review some of those ordinances that when it comes to the night time or the night business in the city of Providence, we need to review them, because we also have to have a nightlife for the young people in our city of Providence. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We have one question that we received already from the community. If anyone else has any other questions, please submit them now. The question is, why are the schools in Providence in such a bad state, and what is the solution?
It's not one question, that's multiple questions. You make it difficult for them to answer you.
This is a question they've written.
Say again, please.
Bueno, sí, sí, sí. Entendí un poco. Entendí un poco.
What is the, yeah.
That's multiple questions.
¿Por qué la escuela
Providence está en tan mala condición, y cuál es la solución?
de arreglarla?
The solution is to fix them.
Pero el Estado está ahí, señor.
The state is
Eso no es problema.
The state is not.
Las escuelas aquí
The schools here
tienen la mayor inversión económica
have the largest economic,
de la población, aunque ellos digan que no.
have the largest financial support from the.
El subsidio que ellos tienen,
Even though they might say they don't.
equivale a casi la segunda parte de casi del presupuesto del Estado.
The subsidy the schools have is about the second largest in the budget of the state.
¿Y por qué la escuela son malas también?
Why are the schools bad?
Porque los profesores son malos,
Because
señor.
the teachers are not.
Y no te, así mismo. Y los principales,
Las escuelas de Providence están down right now. Porque
Ya.
no hay un principal que evalúe a los profesores de cómo pueden trabajar en este estado.
claro, iba por ahí. Entonces, oye, qué bonito eso.
She was saying about the principals are not supporting the teachers.
Yes, all BS. It's just so.
Yo en estos días he estado mirando.
These days I have been watching,
Yo le pregunté
and I asked
a un discípulo, a un muchacho de aquí de la escuela,
the person who's in the schools here,
y le dije,
and I asked them,
¿quién descubrió América?
who discovered America?
Y me dijo, el papá mío.
And he said, my
A
dad.
lo mejor no lo dijo de chiste,
He told me
no lo dijo
that.
de chiste.
They're ending in stupid America.
Los profesores aquí no tienen la capacidad técnica
It's already here.
ni la capacidad
Don't
organizativa,
have the technical capacity or the organizational
en su mayoría, de educar.
in their education.
Señores, la pedagogía encierra muchas fases.
Pedagogy encompasses a lot of different areas.
¿Por qué son malas la escuela? ¿Por qué son también malos los estudiantes?
Why are the schools bad? Why are the students bad?
Porque no tienen quien los instruya.
Because they don't have who would teach them.
La profesora aquí lo que hacen es 3 líneas en un papel
The teachers, what they
y se lo
do
dan a un niño, dicen B, C y I.
is 3 lines on the
Y
paper.
ese niño lo pasan de curso.
And
A los 2 o 3
they
días lo pasan de curso.
one grade to the other in 2
Entonces,
days.
es una solución administrativa
It's an
y en
administrative,
parte yo culpo
and I blame some.
a los honorables medios de aquí.
I blame the
Porque
mayor
el que tiene, él es el jefe
because he's the
de la escolaridad
boss
aquí.
of the schools here.
Y el que tiene que tomar las decisiones de las preparaciones de los profesores.
Preparation of the teachers.
Que los niños, usted lo ve que van allá y cuando salen más brutos.
You see the students when they go in and they come out, they're knowing less.
Es un problema ya de
It's a problem.
de fase mayor
It's
y es un problema ejecutivo.
an executive problem.
Do I gotta write something down and say anything?
Yeah.
Why can't I just say
No. Let this man speak. Him. Please. Let him.
No, I promise you I will read your question, but you just have to have it.
This man.
Pass them down a little thing. Okay. Who's next?
Yeah.
That one.
Yeah, you can get one. Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Great question. Right now, the Providence schools are run by the state of Rhode Island. if you look at the history of state takeover of school systems, the state could keep control of the schools for 5 more years. It could be longer. So that's the immediate reality. The immediate solution for city council is to focus everything we can on after-school programs so that every single student has the opportunity to play sports after school, to do arts programs after school, homework support, mentorship from all of the universities and colleges, and neighborhood involvement as well. I think the deeper issue that is a sensitive topic but has to be addressed by city council is the teachers union is very powerful. And that's a good thing. But I think a good city councilor should also be bringing balance between the voices of students and parents and families as well. It feels like there's not a real balance in that equation. That concerns me. A good city councilor will bring balance between teachers, administrators, students, principals, as someone has mentioned, have a huge role to play. For now, after-school programs is going to be where I am focused on. And if I win, I will visit every single school in our ward myself, every week, every month, actually go, have lunch with the kids, what do the bathrooms look like, who actually answers the phone, who actually calls the shots. Those are things that you can't really just get from looking on paper and seeing who the principal is. You have to go and pay attention and notice. So that's my commitment to volunteering at Gilbert Stewart After School.
Yes.
Thank you.
Hey, I'm Princeton Avenue, 27 years.
Excellent. Yeah. So,
Excellent.
the education system is a mess. We went through it. I went through Gilbert Stewart, Mount Pleasant, and also as a father and parents to kids that in the education system. A couple of things that I have experience on is leading groups and bringing people together. When I was in the Senate, I created an educational summit to ensure that we try to address the educational gap, learning gap. And that took place for over 6 years, and it continues to be addressed within the Senate. I will do the same thing. I will engage parents and organize them. I want to make sure that you are involved. If I ask you right now that you are involved, and I know Diego, whether my commitment, when I win, I will engage Diego.
What about his?
If I come up short, I will engage Diego or even my good friend here, help him translate in City Hall.
That's right.
But the important thing is that we got to come together as parents, as leaders and young people to engage the educational system. It's a multifaceted approach. As a city council person, I will be at the ground in Ward 9 doing that. At the higher level, working and bringing together the teachers and the unions to figure out how do we make that process better and get our educational system back. Because we haven't experienced what Central Falls went through. Central Falls was the first school that was taken over by the state. And it lasted over 10 years before they got to have their own say. And so I know that the reason why the state has it is because the dropout rate in the city of Providence has continued to increase. And the educational formula is not equitable enough for our students that continue to lag behind. And so we need to improve the parent engagement, improve the after-school programs, improve the community involvement, and also our leadership in the city council. And also, we have a new mayor that has a vision for our school. We need to make sure that that vision aligns with Ward 9 residents also and our kids. Thank you.
I just wanted to address the issue of questions. There are some people who have expressed concern about submitting questions to us, and the only reason we did that was because we didn't want to present a lot of similar duplicate questions to people. So if you would just bear with us, if you have a question, please write it down on a piece of paper and we will present it to the candidates. I believe that there's one person who has a question that...
I don't believe that anyone has a question because Diego has all the answers.
Okay, well, so that may be your belief, but that not everybody in the audience may think the same thing, so. So I just wanted to explain that a little bit better to people. We only have about 5-10 minutes left, so if anyone has a question,
I have a question, I wrote it down too.
Okay. Great. So we're just going to keep going. I just wanted to explain, the process and why we put it together. So I thank you for your patience.
Diego.
That's just for the community.
I think I didn't give it to you.
The other question is why are the city's books not being followed?
Yeah, why this laws not?
Okay, do you have a specific law in mind or just laws?
Okay.
First source, thank you. Okay, we have one more question. It's a two-part question. Yeah, okay, I'll ask them separately. The first is, why are there no ESL classes for people, not just Spanish?
For regular people that non-Spanish speak, why ain't there no ESL classes? For, if I wanted to learn Spanish, I gotta pay $400. But you guys can learn English for free.
Okay, I think you got the question.
That's one question.
I'm gonna take that. All right, I'll go this side. So, John, and to answer the question, that's why I addressed that we need adult education. Adult education at every level. So that way, people who want to learn English, but also have the opportunity to provide that reverse, right, to learn another language, whether it's Spanish, whether it's French Creole, etc. Because I think that we, as a community in Ward 9, we have two public schools, Sackett and Gilbert Stewart. And then we have, Highlander and Sophia Academy and a couple of others. But we need to start utilizing those schools to provide English language learners classes, right? And Spanish or other languages for adult learners. Because, as I said earlier, that's what's going to improve, one, the opportunities to gain gainful employment, two, engage in their children's education, and then three, all those two combined, we can help our families get out of poverty. Thank you.
How are you supposed to do this without no budget? No. How are you supposed to do this without no budget?
Sir, if you can write a question, just.
I can't write. I didn't go to school.
Write it down. Let's get through these, maybe you can talk to Matt.
How are you gonna do this without no budget? You got no money.
A lot of money.
They do what they want. Same potholes must be paid over and over and over again. I'm like, really? Really? The city has no money.
Sí, muy bonito eso. Cuando se habla de idioma, yo estoy ahí porque yo no hablo mucho inglés. Y casi él se ha convertido en un defensor. Los idiomas, el idioma son muy importantes. Tienen sus factores en algunos medios, Hay países,
needs in different
hay
places.
países
There are some countries
que cotean los idiomas gratuitos, óigalo
that
bien,
will teach you
que lo esparcen
language for free.
gratuito. El único estado que te da un caramelo aquí y te cobra 3 es Providence, Rhode Island.
So the only place that will give you a candy but charge you for 3 is Providence.
Lamentablemente, compadre,
Sorry.
las autoridades de Providence no sirven.
The way that
Lo
it
digo
works doesn't
públicamente.
work very well.
Princi- Principalmente empezando por el gobernador del estado, que es una faceta nada más de la burguesía. ¿Eh?
The governor.
Y secundado, ahí mismo, y hablando ahí mismo, del mayor de aquí del estado.
And also talking about the mayor.
Cuando una persona no se, como la pregunta de ahorita que culminó, que cómo yo o nosotros íbamos a hacer para comunicarnos
So what are we going to
con
do?
nuestra comunidad,
With other communities.
viene al trate ahí mismo.
We have to deal with it right there.
Si tú no visitas tus lugares,
If you don't come and visit the neighborhood,
si tú no apoyas tus
if you
lugares,
don't support your
¿cómo
neighborhood,
tú vas a entender la necesidad de idioma o de no idioma, o si aquel habla, si le cobran o no le cobran,
if they have to
etcétera,
pay or
etcétera?
not pay.
Y es verdad,
And it's true.
es verdad. Aquí, para tú aprender
If you want to
a
learn
hablar inglés en un instituto, te cobran dinero.
in school, they will charge you.
O sea, 100 pesos, creo que anteriormente eran $100. Yo pagaba 100 y pico de
You
dólares.
used to pay
Que es de
$100.
que el instituto, aquí, estos profesores de aquí, que yo casi te lo menciono, porque no quiero ni mencionarlo aquí. Entonces es un problema
It's a problem,
de índole social
a social problem
que deben de adjudicarlo
that should be placed
los mayores representantes
in the representative's hands,
del Estado, incluyendo
including
los pedagogos
the
de
teachers
alta esfera aquí.
of the.
Eso es lo único que va a solucionar eso.
That's the only thing that's going to resolve that problem.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Great question. I love that bilingualism has been one of the themes tonight that all three of us are in total agreement on. To answer John's question about free Spanish classes for adults that want to learn Spanish, it's like, John, I'm with you. Any kid that goes to public school in Providence should be learning and have the chance to learn Spanish and English. That is such a massive economic opportunity, both for kids that grow up speaking Spanish and kids that grow up speaking no Spanish at all. So for me, that's the takeaway. And so that's where we have to start, is start with pre-K and kindergarten now and slowly phase in bilingual education at every level.
But what about, if you guys did really door knocking, if you guys really did deep door knocking, I'm gonna say this and I'm gonna shut up.
It's fine,
If
it's
you
fine.
really did that, you would have known that you got African American women in my community feel like they shot up because they don't speak bilingual. When they go put in an application, they gotta be bilingual, but they don't speak. So how can they get a job being a receptionist or something, or working in the doctor's office, when they don't have a chance to even get a job because they already shut off being bilingual?
No, I understand. Thank you.
And that's the problem.
And that's important. And again, that goes back to the history of this neighborhood and the context of this neighborhood that we all have to acknowledge and be very clear about. So thank you, John. I will add, every person that graduates from Brown University, from RISD, has access to great online language tools like Rosetta Stone and other programs that are very expensive that you have to pay a lot of money for. And I'm sitting here going, well, why isn't that just provided to every adult in Providence? I mean, Brown is not paying a lot of taxes, so maybe that's part of the equation for how they pay us back.
Free internet.
There's lots of things like that that Brown, RISD should be offering to residents of Providence. And I think that's a great idea. The bilingualism aspect for adults is huge and is one of them. And the long-term solution is to make sure that we're doing that starting in pre-K and then kindergarten for kids that grow up speaking Spanish and kids that grow up speaking English.
Next question.
Wi-Fi.
Free Wi-Fi, yeah.
How will you get money for your ideas / programs?
¿Cómo conseguimos el dinero para sus programas?
You're lucky it's not cancer.
You should be looked at.
No, that's what I'm saying. That you're lucky it's not cancer.
You thoroughly checked?
But they told me, but you know what, I'm pretty good at it.
How are we gonna get money?
Bueno,
Irritated.
cuando se habla de dinero,
When we talk about money,
es una cosa muy peligrosa.
it's a little bit dangerous.
Y por lo regular la gente siempre quiere oír, pero hay que crear plataformas
We have to create platforms
para poder conseguir
to be able
esos
to
logros para la comunidad.
those accomplishments for the neighborhood.
Other people say,
Y lo primero
The first,
que yo tengo estatuido de ganar, de salir airoso,
the first thing that I would, if I win this election,
es la creación
is the creation
de un departamento
of a department
aquí en el estado, aquí en el
here in the ward
de donaciones.
for donations.
Venga de donde venga, no del sector malo, no vamos a hablar del sector peligroso, a mí no me gusta hablar del sector peligroso,
I don't want to talk about where the donations
sino que vengan
dangerous, but
de la propia vecindad y crearle los medios
to create
a la misma vecindad
for the
de
neighborhood,
que ellos aprendan también
for them to learn
a buscar dinero también,
how to find money.
porque hay veces que tú le dejas todo al Estado y el Estado no
And
construye,
sometimes the state can't do everything for
se
them.
hacen morosos.
People become lazy.
Entonces yo tengo lo siguiente,
So I bring the following.
saliéndome, dice que un concejal
I say a council
es un administrador
is an administrator,
de un sector para el cual fue elegido, electo.
is for the sector for which he was voted in.
El mismo se constituye casi en un padre de la gente, señor. Usted no sabe que usted tiene muchísimos hijos.
Something like a father figure to the people in the neighborhood.
Los concejales son padres, amigos, hermanos,
Council
tíos,
people are
sobrinos de su comunidad.
our family
de su
members,
vecindad.
fathers, children of the neighbors.
Pero también tiene que enseñarlo también a que ellos puedan
But he's also
crear por crear algo. ¿Y cómo lo harían?
How to create.
Yo me voy a salir del estatuto del código
We'll go outside
del ayuntamiento, como diríamos,
of
del consejo edilicio, que es un consejo edilicio. Y voy a proponer
I'll propose
de ganar aquí en la comunidad
that we could make in the community
una fundación,
a foundation,
óigalo bien, y lo vamos a lograr,
and we could do
que se
that.
va a llamar la Fundación del 9,
The foundation of 9, of Ward 9,
con la cual vamos a enseñar a la persona
through which
Ahora,
we teach people to
y
save,
vamos también a liberarnos de muchas cosas
and we could free them
que el Estado no nos las puede dar.
from things that the state can't help us.
Como le dije también,
As I told
un
you,
centro de recaudación, un centro
a
de
place to
de
collect
donación,
money, to collect
en donde
money,
también ayudemos a la comunidad también,
and where we can help the community.
a través de algo social que
So social,
en el segundo término voy a decir después de agotado este turno.
Great question. As we know, in the past 20, 30 years, but especially in the past 2 or 3 years, the wealthiest people in our city and in our country have gotten much, much wealthier, and the rest of us have sort of stayed the same. So some of those people at the top are going to need to pay a little bit more in taxes in order to fund the things that we care about, like bilingual education in schools, because that's going to make everyone better off. But for now, an idea that I've had is when I'm elected, I'm promising that I will donate half of my city council salary, because I'm going to keep working as a teacher anyway, but I'll donate at least half of my city council salary back to a pot of money that can be used for neighborhood projects, art prizes for kids, small business loans, and neighbors themselves can vote on how that money is used and allotted. So that's something that we can do. There is money lying around. The question is, how is it being spent now? So that's my commitment to this neighborhood and actually investing money back into our community and giving neighbors the right to vote on that money and decide where it needs to be spent.
So where do we get the money? We have a budget in the city of Providence, and I will fight to bring resources and money to the city. To the ward. One, to make sure that our streets are clean. For the projects, yesterday there was a fire on Lenox Avenue, and I know a conversation with a candidate and a resident, Miguel Quesada, who had a fire in his house. And those who brought this idea in mind, in essence, when we were having this conversation and I was running the primary, was that how do we have a crisis management team to help families who have a fire or a situation in their home? Where do we get those funds? And so we, as a community, we will develop a 9th Ward civic fund for just a ward committee to address those issues. Last night there was a fire on Lenox Avenue, and I was there. I saw it in the news at 11 o'clock. I showed up. A family with 3 kids displaced on the 3rd floor, the 2nd floor, the same thing. And so I think that we have to come together to ensure that our families, when they have these type of crisis, that the team captains will come together to also create this fund, so that way we have resources in the community to try to help out and augment the services provided by the American Red Cross. So, as I would say is, I will fight for more city dollars to come to the ward. I will also encourage you to vote for the questions on the ballot. On the ballot come November 8th. Question 1, 2, and 3. And particularly 2 and 3, because that's reaffirming dollars to improve our schools, dollars to improve our higher education. And so that aggressiveness, we need to, one, get out the vote, make sure that we are advocating and come to the meetings when I get elected or one of us get elected. We need to participate. Our voice, a strong voice. We should have, my goal is to have one of the best ward represented and the best ward city councilor. Thank you very much.
Thank you all for coming. We are at time, unfortunately, so we do have to call an end to the evening. However, before we go, we would like to give each candidate 1 minute to have a closing statement. 1 minute.
Give us at least 2. Right? Let's advocate for 2.
2 minutes?
2 minutes.
Sure.
1 to 2 minutes.
There we go.
1 to 2 minutes. Gracias a los otros candidatos. Thank you so much for all the things you do in our neighborhood, for your history of service to Providence and to Rhode Island. Thank you. I'm a high school teacher and I'm a social worker. That's where my focus is. I'm running as an independent because my neighborhood is my party and everyone is a member. I'm not interested in using this position for higher office or anything like that. I'm interested in giving you the most that I can in the next 48 years and showing up for our young people during school and after school and making sure that our government is running more smoothly, more efficiently for the average person and for the average student who needs a little bit more support and giving them a voice. Thank you so much. Gracias a todos. I hope you have a wonderful night.
Yes, Diego.
Aplausos. Bueno, gracias por esos 2 minutos.
Thank you for the 2 minutes.
Yo le agradezco de una manera solidaria
For with solidarity.
Primero, a los que de una manera espontánea se dignaron organizar este
First to those who organized
lindo, muy lindo procedimiento.
this process. Thank you.
Para no decir que nosotros no hemos estado aquí, nosotros hemos estado entre hermanos aquí.
We've
Yo
been
nunca
here,
había visto una hermandad tan grande así.
among brothers here.
Yo siempre he dicho
I've always said
que aquí casi no se habla de la juventud.
that here we don't talk too much about the youth.
¿Por qué?
Why?
Un ente tan importante en una sociedad y lo tenemos marginado, no hablamos de ellos. Tanto así que casi no hablamos de ellos nosotros en lo que tuvimos aquí.
Talk about them, but we hardly talked about them here.
Entonces yo iría por algo muy elemental que yo pongo en práctica.
So I would start with something very elementary that I practice.
Basándome en una plataforma que yo me meto por ahí, me robo por ahí una casa que tengo vacía y me meto.
So I would start.
Si está en mi distrito, me meto y la cojo.
I would take a house that's vacant here in the neighborhood.
¿Cuál es?
Which one?
Número uno, la creación de una escuela
To start a school
de capacitación técnica laboral.
to train technical for work.
Que la juventud tenga algo que hacer, algo que emplearse. Aprender
Young people would have something.
mecánica, electricidad.
Mechanics, electrical.
¿Sabían ustedes que eso es muy bueno para la comunidad? Porque ayuda a la comunidad. Cuando se gradúan,
That's very helpful for the community.
5 o 6 técnicos en refrigeración.
When there's 5 or 6
Ya está entrando dinero en el Estado. Ya está circulando el dinero en
graduating
el...
with those title with those degrees
En el lugar.
coming into the city.
Número 2.
Number 2,
No son 2 minutos. La creación
the creation
de la Dirección General de la Juventud. Vamos a agrupar la juventud, señores. Vamos a darle oportunidad a la juventud también de que ellos interactúen unos a los otros.
opportunities to the youth so that they
Y así ellos se olvidan mucho de la barra, de la junta,
can forget the
de los amigos, porque dicen, no, espérate, yo soy el presidente de la juventud del distrito número 9.
You could say I'm the president
Y tengo un compromiso histórico hoy con ellos,
and I have a
porque me voy a reunir
with them.
para hablar de la juventud que está en la calle,
So we're going to talk about the youth in the streets
lo están haciendo mal.
that aren't doing it well.
Y sobre todo, señores,
And above
señores,
all,
es triste decirlo,
it's sad to say,
y yo no tengo pelo en la lengua, por favor.
and I'm not ashamed of
Ustedes saben que la legalización de la marihuana
that the legalization of marijuana
en algunos aspectos perjudica a la niñez.
in some ways is damaging to the
Es
children.
muy fácil, señores.
It's very easy.
Si en una casa los dos padres fuman marihuana medicinal, no estoy criticando, no estoy diciendo que lo hacen por vicio.
If both people, both adults smoke,
Y ese niño inhala esos vapores, inhala ese humo. ¿A qué tiende después el niño también? Porque está mirando a su papá y a su mamá fumando.
if a youth is absorbing the smoke there, and what are they going to do later on? Because
Y es bueno, por favor, es bueno por favor, que cada uno se constituya, que nos constituyamos en eso.
Is it
En
good?
decirle a los padres,
We should tell
caramba, que por
parents
enfermedad, que yo lo sé, por enfermedad,
because of
usan marihuana o usan algo, que se atengan de usarlo frente a sus hijos.
that they shouldn't use it in front of their children.
Que vivan todos ustedes. Gracias.
May you all live.
Caramba por soportarme. Un aplauso a todo el equipo.
So the work would not be easy. I believe that I'm up to the challenge. Just as I was up to the challenge when I ran and I was younger. When my wife and I, Janet, moved on Atlantic Avenue 29 years ago, and also raising our kids in our neighborhood. I'm up to the challenge to ensure that we continue to come together to work for a better future. And I said that before, and I continue to say it now. Because I'm committed to engage you to ensure that our trash gets picked up, our snow gets really cleaned well, but also fight for our kids and the educational system. making sure also that we provide that adult education and those programs for the aging communities. Because at the end of the day, I want to honor those people who sacrifice so much, like my mother who's here, Evangelista, who sacrificed so much over the years to ensure that we all can live here in our communities. That we're creating more low to moderate housing, affordable housing in our ward, and I'm going to fight for that. And I know that people that ran for office are committed to doing that, and I know that we're going to do our darnest best to have the best ward. At the end of the day, we all know that there's a few days to come out to vote on November 8th. And know that, just come out and exercise your vote. Whether you vote for me, of course I ask for your vote, but just get out to vote. Because democracy, it's right here. Even when it needs to be translated. You know, right? And so, and that we accept the fact that he answers in Spanish. But that's what democracy is all about. At the end of the day, I want to make sure that you have at least my number and that you could call me. 401-527-6427 and come out to vote on November 8th. Thank you very much.